in the deep silence of eternity, long before the rise of kingdoms, before the dust of the earth shaped nations, before prophets walked the edges of fire and shadow, there was a presence, not a whisper, not a rumor, a presence. He moved before time learned to speak. He stood when the mountains were unformed and the seas had no borders. He walked through ages the way mortals walk through doors. His footsteps were older than language. His voice carved destiny into the fabric of the world. And when he appeared, the earth bowed without needing to be told. The patriarchs called him the angel of the Lord. But he was more than an angel, more than a messenger, more than a heavenly being wrapped in light. He was the face that appeared when God stepped into human history, the one who visited, the one who vanished, the one who is coming back. And this is his story. The wind over the ancient land of Canaan always carried the scent of heat and sand, but on that particular day, it carried something else, something Abraham had only felt once before but had never forgotten. It was the kind of presence, bends time, that turns the air heavy, that makes the soul straighten itself in quiet fear. Abraham lifted his eyes beneath the terebinth trees of Mamre, and he saw 3 figures walking toward him, figures whose very shadows trembled with heavenly weight. But one among them, one walked as if the earth recognized his steps. Abraham didn't understand why, but his knees weakened, his breath shortened. Something ancient inside him whispered, "Bow. Now, the Lord has come." And so Abraham ran like a man who had been waiting his entire life for this moment. When he reached the travelers, he bowed so deeply his forehead nearly touched the dust. He did not bow out of culture or respect or hospitality. He bowed because his spirit knew something his mind had not yet grasped. This was no ordinary visitor. When the angel of the Lord spoke, his voice sounded like eternity touching mortal ears. "Where is Sarah, your wife?" Abraham trembled. The angel didn't need information. He already knew where she was. He already knew her story. He already knew the son that had been promised. What he spoke next split open the fabric of time. "Surely I will return to you, and Sarah will have a son." Return? Return from where? Return when? Abraham didn't know. Sarah didn't know. The world didn't know. But the angelic visitor knew, because this was not merely a prophecy. It was a declaration from the one who writes time, not reads it. Sarah laughed behind the tent veil. Her laugh was the laugh of a woman who had buried hope in the graveyard of old age. But the angel heard it, not with ears, with knowledge. He turned, his face like a flame hidden behind human likeness, and said, "Why did Sarah laugh?" His voice carried no anger, only impossible certainty, certainty that shakes the bones. Is anything too hard for the Lord? The desert fell silent, as if creation itself waited for the answer. In that moment, Abraham realized something that made his blood run cold. This wasn't a mere angel delivering a message. This was the Lord himself, clothed in angelic form. As the sun burned low and the evening winds rose, the angel of the Lord began to walk away toward Sodom, where fire and judgment waited. Abraham followed, almost afraid to breathe. "How can I remain silent?" Abraham whispered, "when the judge of all the earth stands before me?" Judge, not messenger, not warrior, judge. It was a title Abraham did not give lightly. The angel of the Lord turned his eyes toward Abraham, eyes older than creation, eyes full of flames and compassion at the same time. Shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do? He was not merely talking to a man. He was inviting humanity into the courtroom of heaven. It was then Abraham understood the truth. This being had authority no angel carried. This being spoke like God because he was God. And so Abraham stood before him trembling, pleading for the souls in the valley, pleading before the angel who held in his hands both mercy and destruction. That night, as fire rained on Sodom and the mountains swallowed cities whole, Abraham could still feel the echo of the angel's footsteps, echoes that would carry through generations. The angel would appear again, not to Abraham this time, but to a shepherd in the wilderness. And this is where destiny sharpened its blade. The wilderness of Horeb, was a place where silence held dominion, a place where days were drowned in heat and nights shivered with cold. Nothing lived there except stubborn shrubs, wandering winds, and the memories of forgotten footsteps. But on one particular day, the silence broke. Moses had walked this land for 40 years, long enough for regret to carve lines into his face and exile to harden the edges of his heart. He was a shepherd now, a shadow of the prince he once was, a fugitive dressed in desert dust. He did not expect destiny. He did not expect heaven. He did not expect fire. Yet there it was, a flame, burning in a bush that refused to be consumed. The desert had many illusions, but this was different. The fire didn't dance like normal fire. It held still, as if waiting, as if aware, as if alive. Moses stepped closer, curiosity pushing him forward, fear pulling him back. His sandals crushed the sand beneath him as he whispered to himself, "I will turn aside and see this great sight." But the moment he stepped into the circle of divine presence, everything changed. The fire moved. It didn't spread. It shifted, almost as though it turned its attention directly toward him. And then it happened. A voice tore through the flame, a voice that carried thunder wrapped in gentleness, eternity wrapped in intimacy. "Moses, Moses." The sound froze the desert wind. It froze Moses. It froze time. No ordinary fire speaks. No ordinary flame calls a man by name. Moses' knees weakened, his heart hammered with ancient fear. "Here I am." He spoke like a man unsure if he was still alive. Then came the command that shook the desert itself. "Remove your sandals, for the place where you stand is holy ground." Holy? The sand? The bush? This lonely mountain? No. The ground was not holy by nature. It was holy because of the one who stood there. And then the voice spoke again. "I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." Moses fell on his face, trembling, covering himself with his cloak. He did not simply feel fear. He felt unworthiness, the crushing realization that destiny had returned for him after 40 silent years. But here is the mystery. The scriptures say, "The angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire from the midst of the bush." Exodus 3:2. Yet the voice that followed, "I am the God of Abraham," not a messenger, not a representative, not an angel delivering words on behalf of God. The angel spoke as God. Moses was not conversing with a heavenly servant. He was kneeling before the same being who walked with Abraham under the terebinth trees, the same one who had eaten at Abraham's table, the same one who judged Sodom, the same one whose footsteps shook the mountains. The desert around Moses suddenly felt too small to contain the presence. Then the voice declared, "I have seen the oppression of my people. I have heard their cry. I know their sorrows, and I have come down to deliver them." These words carried power, the kind of power that breaks chains, splits seas, and crushes empires. I have come down. The angel of the Lord had come again, not in human form this time, but in fire, a fire that did not need wood to burn, a fire that could speak, a fire that could send. "Moses," the angel said, "I will send you to Pharaoh." It wasn't a request, it was a decree, one spoken by the same voice that once called light out of darkness. Moses stammered, "Who am I, that I should go?" The flame leaned forward, almost as if drawing nearer, its light pulsing like a heartbeat of heaven. "I will be with you." And then, the revelation that rewrote history, Moses asked, "Who shall I say sent me?" The angel of the Lord answered, "I am that I am." Not he is, not God says, not the Lord commands, but I am, the name that belongs only to the Eternal One. The desert bowed, the mountain bowed, time bowed, because once again, the angel of the Lord, the pre-incarnate Christ, had stepped into human story. He would lead Moses. He would walk through Egypt. He would overshadow the Red Sea. He would stand in the pillar of fire. He would descend upon Sinai in thunder, and through him the world would learn that he appears when his people are trapped, and he returns when the time is right. But his appearances were not finished. He would come again, this time not in fire, but as a warrior. he would appear to a man standing on the edge of a battlefield, sword in hand, heart trembling. His name was Joshua, and the angel of the Lord would meet him with a sword drawn from heaven itself. Night had fallen on the plains near Jericho, a quiet, uneasy kind of night, the kind that makes even warriors grip their swords tighter. The city of Jericho stood like a giant in the darkness, its walls thick, ancient, impossible. Every stone in that fortress whispered, "You cannot enter." Joshua stood alone on the field, staring at those walls that mocked him. He was a soldier, trained, fierce, chosen to lead, but even great leaders feel the weight of impossibility. Joshua inhaled deeply. His heart was steady, but his mind was restless. How do I take a city whose walls touch the sky? How do I lead a nation when I cannot see the path? Where is the God who promised to be with us? As the questions tightened around him, the air suddenly shifted. Something changed. Something unseen moved through the night. Not wind, not sound, presence. A presence Joshua had never felt before, yet somehow recognized. He looked up, and there, standing a short distance away, was a man. Not a soldier from Jericho, not one of Joshua's own men, a stranger. But this stranger was different. He stood tall, unshaken, glowing with an authority that did not belong to earth. His face was calm, but his stance radiated immeasurable strength, and in his hand, a sword, drawn, ready, and shining with a light that did not belong to fire or metal. Joshua's hand instinctively went to his own weapon. He walked toward the stranger, not with fear, but with the courage of a man who had spent his life in battle. He demanded, "Are you for us or for our enemies?" The stranger turned his head slightly, his eyes blazing like galaxies compressed into human form. He answered with a voice that carried the vibration of eternity. "No, not yes, not no, not friend, not enemy, just no," as if to say, "You do not get to place me on your side. You are the one who must choose mine." Then the stranger continued, "But as captain of the Lord's hosts, I have now come." The world stopped. Joshua's breath vanished from his chest. Captain of the Lord's hosts? That was no ordinary title. No angel in all of Scripture ever claimed it. No heavenly messenger held that rank. This was the commander-in-chief of heaven's armies, the captain of countless angels, the leader of the forces who move at the command of God himself. Joshua's sword slipped from his hand and fell into the dust. He dropped to the ground, face down, trembling, not out of fear of a warrior, but the recognition of the divine. "What does my Lord say to his servant?" Joshua whispered, his voice barely surviving the weight of holiness. And then the captain spoke a sentence Joshua had heard before, a sentence Moses heard at the burning bush, a sentence that only one being in all of Scripture had the authority to command. "Remove your sandals, for the place where you stand is holy." Holy, not because Jericho was holy, not because the field was holy, not because Joshua was holy. No, the ground was holy because of who stood there. Only one being in the Bible made ground holy by his presence. The angel of the Lord, the one who spoke from the fire, the one who declared, "I am that I am," the one who appeared to Abraham, the one who judges, delivers, commands, the one who carries the authority of God because he is God in revealed form. Joshua understood. The same presence that walked with Moses, the same voice that thundered from the bush, the same angel who fought for Israel, was standing in front of him, sword drawn, ready for war. And then the captain gave Joshua a battle plan, not one of human strategy, not one of military genius, but one so absurdly divine that only heaven could have invented it. March, blow trumpets, shout, and walls that had stood for centuries would crumble like sand. Joshua obeyed, Israel obeyed, and heaven fought. The captain did not simply give instructions, he led the invisible war. As the priests blew the trumpets and the people lifted their voices, Jericho's walls did not fall from human force. They fell because the captain of the Lord's hosts swung his unseen sword. Stone by stone, the fortress surrendered to the one who cannot be resisted. Israel saw the victory, but Joshua knew the truth. It was won by the being who stands between heaven and earth, the one who appears when destiny shifts, the one who disappears when the mission is done, the one who will return when time reaches its final hour. But his story does not end on Jericho's battlefield. He would come again, not with a drawn sword, but with patience and quiet strength, to meet a man hiding in fear, a man who believed he was too insignificant to be chosen. His name was Gideon, and the angel of the Lord would call him into greatness. Night settled over Israel like a suffocating cloak. The Midianites had swept across the land like locusts, burning fields, stealing grain, destroying harvests, and crushing the hope of an entire nation. Israel lived in fear. Families survived in caves. Children whispered so they would not be heard. Men threshed wheat in secret, praying not to be discovered. It was a season where faith felt small, and God felt far, and Gideon, young, unsure, bruised by life, was hiding. He was inside a winepress, a pit carved into the earth, meant for crushing grapes, not threshing wheat. The dust rose around him as he worked in silence, each strike of the staff echoing his frustration. Where is God now? Where are the miracles our fathers spoke of? Why has the Lord abandoned us? He did not speak these words aloud, but heaven heard them, and heaven answered. A presence entered the winepress valley, quiet, unannounced, yet overwhelming. Gideon didn't notice at first. His eyes were on the grain, his thoughts on despair. Then he sensed it, like the air thickened, like an unseen light filled the darkness, like someone stood near him, too close, too real, too holy. Gideon froze. There, sitting under the oak tree beside the winepress, was a man. But he was no ordinary man. His posture was calm. His eyes carried the depth of eternity. His presence wrapped the space with a weight Gideon could feel in his bones. And then he spoke, with a voice that held both gentleness and thunder. "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." Gideon's heart stumbled. Mighty warrior, me, I'm hiding, I'm surviving, I am the least in my father's house, and my family is the least in Manasseh, and our tribe is the least in Israel. He dared not speak his thoughts, but the stranger read them anyway. Gideon swallowed hard and said what every broken heart eventually whispers. If the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? He waited for correction, for rebuke, for judgment. But the stranger did not condemn him. Instead, he stood. And when he stood, Gideon felt the earth shift. The stranger's face glowed, not with fire, but with authority, with identity, with the weight of heaven. When he spoke again, the winepress became holy ground. Go in the strength you have. I am sending you. Not God is sending you. Not the Lord says you must go. Not I am a messenger. I am sending you. The same phrase used at the burning bush. The same tone Abraham heard under the oak trees of Mamre. The same authority Joshua felt on the battlefield. Gideon stammered, "Lord, how can I save Israel?" Lord. He didn't yet understand why he said it, but his heart recognized him before his mind did. The stranger stepped closer. His presence was overwhelming but not suffocating. His eyes held both compassion and unstoppable resolve. "Surely I will be with you." Gideon trembled. This was no angelic messenger. This was the presence that turns the ordinary into destiny. This was the same being who called Moses, who strengthened Joshua, who judged Egypt, who walked with Abraham. This was the angel of the Lord. Still unsure, still trembling, Gideon whispered, "If I have found favor, give me a sign that it is really you speaking to me." He rushed away to prepare an offering. When he returned, carrying meat and bread on a stone, the stranger waited, eyes fixed on him. Gideon placed the offering on the rock. "Pour the broth over it," the angel said. Gideon obeyed, though it drenched the offering and made fire impossible. But impossibility means nothing to the one who created fire. Then, slowly, deliberately, the angel of the Lord extended his staff and touched the rock. Fire exploded from the stone, not from the offering, not from the air, not from the ground, from the stone itself, as if heaven had cracked open beneath it. The flame consumed everything. The bread, the meat, the broth, the fear, the hesitation, and as the fire rose into the night sky, the angel vanished, instantly, completely, without footsteps. without trace, because the one who steps into time can also step out of it. Gideon collapsed, his voice broke with terror and revelation. Alas, Lord God, I have seen the angel of the Lord face to face. He knew now, he understood. He had not just met an angel, he had met the being who bears the very name and presence of God. The same one who walked with Abraham, the same one who burned in the bush, the same one who stood on Jericho's battlefield, the same one who judges and delivers and speaks like the Almighty. And Gideon learned this truth. Whenever God chooses a person for destiny, the angel of the Lord meets them in their hiding place and calls them by who they will become, not by who they are. But the angel's appearances did not end with Gideon. There was one more encounter, an encounter that revealed fear, judgment, mercy, and power all at once. A night when the angel of the Lord appeared with a sword drawn over a city, and the fate of a nation hung in the balance, before he disappeared for centuries, waiting for his appointed time to return. The night over Jerusalem was unsettling. The wind carried no comfort. The stars hid behind trembling clouds. The city, normally alive with footsteps and murmurs, felt hollow, as if creation itself was waiting for something it feared to witness. David, king of Israel, sat in silence. The guilt in his chest weighed heavier than his armor ever had. He had commanded a census, a sinful act of pride, a move rooted not in trust but in human strength. And now, Israel was suffering for his mistake. A plague swept the nation like a dark wave. Men who had stood with him in battle, families who had sung his name, villages that had blessed him, were falling one by one. David could not bear it. I alone have sinned, he whispered. Let your hand fall on me, not on the people. He lifted his head, and then he saw it, a sight that froze the blood in his veins. A sight no king, no prophet, no mortal was ever ready to behold. Above Jerusalem, between earth and sky, stood a figure, towering, radiant, terrifying, an angel, but not like the angels people imagined in gentle paintings. This one shook the heavens. His robe blazed like lightning wrapped in holiness. His presence pressed against the hearts of every living creature. His eyes burned with divine fire, and in his hand, a sword, drawn, lifted, extended over the entire city. It gleamed with unstoppable judgment, a blade forged not from metal, but from the very justice of God. David fell to the ground, face in the dust. His warriors collapsed beside him. Even the air seemed to bow, because this was not merely an angel. This was the angel of the Lord, the same being whose footsteps shook Abraham's spirit, the same voice that thundered from the burning bush, the same captain who commanded the armies of heaven at Jericho, the same presence who consumed Gideon's offering with fire. Now he stood over Jerusalem, not as a messenger, but as the executor of divine justice. His sword stretched out with a readiness that made the earth tremble. One motion, one swing, and the city would fall. Death itself waited for his command. David lifted his tear-filled eyes. The king who had slain giants, the warrior who had conquered nations, the shepherd who had faced lions, was now a broken man before the Holy One. "O Lord," he cried, "please, please spare your people. Let your anger fall on me, not them. They are but sheep. I am the one who has sinned." His voice cracked with raw agony. The angel did not move, did not blink, did not lower his sword. He simply stood, the bridge between heaven's wrath and earth's hope. Then, through the trembling darkness, a voice came, not from the angel, but from heaven itself. It thundered, yet carried mercy. It shook the ground, yet lifted the soul. "Enough, withdraw your hand." The angel of the Lord did not argue, did not hesitate, did not question. He obeyed, because though he carried divine authority, he was also perfectly aligned with the will of the one who sent him. Slowly, majestically, he lowered the sword. The threat vanished. The earth exhaled, the plague stopped, and then the angel moved, not toward the sky, not toward the Temple Mount, but toward a threshing floor. Araunah's threshing floor, a simple place, a rugged place, a place of work, sweat, and grain. But the moment the angel stood there, it became sacred. David followed the angel's direction, trembling. He reached Araunah's land, breathless, overwhelmed, shaken to his core. When Araunah saw the king, he bowed. "My lord, take the land," he said. "Take the oxen, the wood, the tools. Use everything you need for sacrifice. Let me give it freely." David shook his head, tears on his face, eyes reflecting the lingering glow of the angel. "No," he whispered. "I will not offer to the Lord what costs me nothing." On that very spot, the place where judgment paused, the place where mercy overshadowed wrath, the place where the angel of the Lord stood with his sword lowered, David built an altar. He sacrificed, he wept, he worshipped, and the angel watched, silent, majestic, eternal. When the final flame rose to heaven, peace settled over the land. The angel sheathed his sword, and then, just as at Gideon's rock, just as at the burning bush, just as under Abraham's trees, he vanished, not because his work was over, but because his next appearance would come at the appointed time, a time when the world would need him again, a time when darkness would rise, a time when heaven would prepare for its greatest intervention. For after this encounter, the angel of the Lord stepped back from the Old Testament story and did not appear again in visible form, not until he returned as a child, wrapped in flesh, born in a manger, walking among men, speaking the same authority, declaring the same name, fulfilling the mystery of every appearance before. But his story is not finished. He came once in fire, he came once with a sword, he came once as a shepherd, and according to prophecy, he will come again, not in silence, not in shadows, not to call one man or guide one nation, but to judge the living and the dead, to command the armies of heaven again, to finish what he began. And the world will see him, just as Abraham did, just as Moses did, just as Joshua did, just as David did. The angel who visited 3,000 years ago is the one who will return. For generations after David's trembling night, after the sword was lowered, after the angel vanished into the unseen realm, Israel waited, prophets rose, kings died, nations collapsed, empires came and went like sand slipping through the fingers of time. The angel of the Lord, the one who appeared in fire, in human form, on battlefields, in hidden winepresses, on threshing floors, no longer appeared, not to prophets, not to kings, not to warriors, not to shepherds. He was silent, but his silence was not absence, it was anticipation. Heaven was preparing something the earth had never seen, something that would shake the foundations of existence, something that would reveal the identity of the angel once and for all, because the one who appeared as an angel was about to come as a child. In the fullness of time, when the world groaned under the weight of darkness, a whisper broke through eternity and entered the fragile world of flesh, a cry from a manger, a breath from a newborn, a heartbeat that resonated with heaven. The angel of the Lord had returned, not as fire, not as a warrior, not as a judge, but as Emmanuel, God with us. The same voice that called Moses by name now cried in Mary's arms. The same feet that stood on holy ground now kicked softly in swaddling cloth. The same eyes that watched David repent now blinked beneath a Bethlehem star. And yet, so few understood. Scribes didn't see it, Pharisees couldn't grasp it, kings feared it, Rome ignored it. But the heavens knew. Every angel in glory knew. Every throne and principality knew. Every ancient prophecy whispered his name through the ages. And when he walked the dusty roads of Judea, teaching, healing, restoring, there were moments when the veil between his humanity and his eternal identity almost slipped. When he said, "Before Abraham was, I am," the ground remembered the voice in the burning bush. When he said, "I will return with the angels," the armies of heaven braced for the call of their captain. When he calmed the storm with a word, the Red Sea remembered the one who split it. When he cast out demons, they cried, "We know who you are," because they remembered him, from ancient battles fought long before Eden. When he walked on water, creation recognized the one who hovered over the deep. Every miracle, every healing, every word he spoke was a reminder to the world. The angel of the Lord had stepped into flesh. The invisible had become visible. The eternal had entered time. But then, the most shocking act of all, the one who commanded Abraham, who commissioned Moses, who led Joshua, who tested Gideon, who spared Jerusalem, allowed himself to be beaten, mocked, rejected, pierced, and crucified. As he hung on the cross, the earth trembled, the sun darkened, the veil in the temple tore in two, graves opened, creation reacted. Because it recognized who was dying, the angel of the Lord, the one who appeared in burning fire and radiant glory, the one who carried judgment and mercy in equal measure, the one who held nations in his hand, was giving his life for the world. Not even angels could fully comprehend it. The power who once stood with a sword drawn over Jerusalem now surrendered to the nails of Rome. But death could not contain the one who created life. The grave could not hold the one who holds eternity. 3 days later, the angel of the Lord rose, not in smoke, not in fire, not in mystery, but in victory. And yet, his mission was not finished. Before ascending, he revealed a truth that echoed through every appearance he had ever made. I go to prepare a place for you, and I will come again. Not as a child this time, not as a suffering servant, not hidden in human limitation, but as the angel who walked with Abraham, as the fire that spoke to Moses, as the captain who led Joshua, as the judge who held the sword over Jerusalem. He will return as he appeared before, with power, with glory, with armies, with fire, with judgment, with redemption. The one who visited 3,000 years ago is the same one who walked the roads of Galilee, and the same one who will split the skies when history reaches its end. And every eye will see him, just as Abraham saw him, as Moses saw him, as Joshua saw him, as Gideon saw him, as David saw him. He is coming, not because the world is worthy, but because the world is his. But his return is not just a prophecy, it is a promise woven through every ancient appearance, a promise written in the blood of the Lamb, a promise hidden in the flames of the burning bush, a promise whispered in the night of Abraham's tent, a promise declared by the sword above Jerusalem, a promise that will not fail. Long before humanity took its first breath, before Adam opened his eyes to Eden's sunrise, before the first river flowed, a war had already begun. A war so ancient that only eternity remembers its first strike. A war fought not with swords of iron, but with wills, with authority, with glory, with rebellion. It began in realms beyond sight, in the heights where angels dwelled, where light was pure, where harmony echoed like a celestial song. There, among the hosts of heaven, stood the one who would later appear as the angel of the Lord. His presence radiated like the dawn, his voice commanded galaxies. His authority surpassed every throne, dominion, and principality. By him all things existed, through him all things were made, before him every knee bent, and then something shifted, a different being, a creature of brilliance named Lucifer. The morning star, the anointed cherub, looked at his own beauty and fell in love with himself. Pride, the first poison, dripped into his spirit. He whispered what had never been whispered before. I will rise, I will ascend, I will set my throne above the stars, I will be like the Most High. And heaven shook, because rebellion had never existed, because pride had no place in perfect light, because one created being dared to challenge the throne of the eternal. But rebellion cannot bloom where the angel of the Lord stands, the one who walked with Abraham, the one who spoke from fire, the one who would later command the armies at Jericho, now stood as the commander of heaven's forces. The book of Revelation calls him the Lamb. Isaiah calls him Mighty God. Joshua called him Captain of the Lord's hosts. The prophets called him the Eternal One, and in that ancient war, he was the one before whom darkness trembled. A battle ignited, not bound by time, not fought with metal, but with pure spiritual force. Lightning cracked across heaven. Waves of glory collided. Angels rushed into formation. Lucifer and his followers were cast down, not slowly, not gradually, but like lightning falling from the sky. The war was finished, but its echo, its consequences, its shadow would stretch into human history and reach all the way to the final days of the earth, because the defeated enemy did not vanish. He fell to the world below, that world we now live in. And from that day, the war of heaven became the war of earth. Every nation's turmoil, every spiritual attack, every temptation, every deception, every broken home, every rising darkness, all of it was an extension of that ancient rebellion. But in every generation, the angel of the Lord appeared, not just to guide, but to confront the shadow that slithered through time. He faced the darkness in Abraham's age, in Moses' age, in Joshua's age, in Gideon's age, in David's age, until the day he stepped into flesh and confronted the enemy directly. He met him in the wilderness, not with fire, not with armies, not with a sword drawn, but with the word. Each temptation was an echo of that ancient battle. Each answer was a reminder of his authority, and once again, the enemy fled. But the war was not over. Even after the cross, even after the resurrection, even after the empty tomb, the rebellion continued on earth, because the enemy knows what the world tries to forget. The angel of the Lord is coming back, and his return will end the ancient war forever. It will not be like his first coming, quiet, hidden, humble. It will not be like his Old Testament appearances, brief, selective, symbolic. His return will be cosmic, unstoppable, undeniable. For just as he once stood with a sword drawn over Jerusalem, he will once again stand over the nations, not in warning, but in judgment. The skies will tear open, the armies of heaven will descend, the stars will fall like torches thrown from heaven's gate, the sea will roar and tremble, mountains will bow, islands will flee, nations will shake, kings will hide, the earth will burn with the brightness of his coming, and every eye will see him. The one who visited Abraham, the one who spoke to Moses, the one who fought for Joshua, the one who called Gideon, the one who spared Jerusalem, the one who died and rose, the one who ascended in glory, the one who always returns. This is the reason he must come back, because the war that began in heaven will end on earth, because truth must defeat deception, because holiness must shatter corruption, because justice must silence rebellion, because love must rescue creation from decay, because the promise made in ancient times must be fulfilled before all nations. The angel of the Lord, the eternal Son, the captain of the armies of heaven, the judge of all the earth, will return to finish the story he started when he first walked with the patriarchs. And when he returns, the same voice that called Moses, Moses, will call to the nations. The same fire that burned the bush will burn away corruption. The same sword that hovered over Jerusalem will strike down darkness once and for all. But his return is not only about judgment. It is about restoration, about renewal, about victory, about the world finally becoming what it was meant to be. The one who visited 3,000 years ago will return to gather his own, to restore creation, to overthrow every force of evil, and to reign forever. The war will end. The rebellion will be silenced. The king will take his throne. There are moments in history that tremble with prophecy, moments when the world feels older than time, moments when creation itself seems to hold its breath. We are living in such a moment. The same shadows that crawled across ancient empires now creep across modern nations. The same rebellion that began in heaven now pulses through governments, cultures, and hearts. The same deception that whispered in Eden now echoes through screens, cities, and systems. The world feels full of noise, full of conflict, full of fear, full of the unspoken sense that something is coming. But what is coming is not chaos. It is not darkness. It is not destruction. What is coming is him, the one who stood with Abraham beneath the ancient trees, the one who called Moses by name from the burning bush, the one who stood before Joshua with a drawn sword, the one who consumed Gideon's sacrifice in fire, the one who hovered over Jerusalem in judgment, the one who walked on earth wrapped in human flesh, the one who died and rose and ascended in glory. He is coming back, not as a servant, not as a shepherd, not as a suffering Savior, but as the angel of the Lord, the eternal captain of heaven's armies, the king whose throne cannot be shaken, the judge who sees all, the God who keeps every promise. And when he returns, he will not descend quietly. The sky will fracture with light. Thunder will roll across the earth like a roaring flood. The stars will shiver as if recognizing their maker. The sun will dim in reverence. The moon will hide behind the glory that approaches. And all eyes, every nation, every tribe, every generation, will lift their gaze. For suddenly the heavens will open, and the one who once walked between two worlds will step through the veil, not alone, Behind him, stretching farther than the horizon, will be the armies of heaven, angelic hosts clad in white, chariots of fire glowing like molten gold, wings that shimmer with creation's first light. And at their head, just as he once appeared before Jericho, he will descend with a sword drawn, not a sword of metal, but a sword of truth, a sword of judgment, a sword that separates light from darkness, justice from wickedness, truth from deception. His eyes will flame like fire, his voice will thunder like oceans. His presence will shake the earth, and the nations will realize this is the same one who visited the patriarchs, the same one who stood in the fire, the same one who commanded armies, the same one who walked among men, the same one who carries eternity in his hands. He will descend, not slowly, not gently, but with the unstoppable force of a king returning for his kingdom. And at his arrival, every knee will bow, every tongue will confess, every throne will tremble, every crown will fall, every enemy will be silenced, every demon will flee, every stronghold will break. For the one who returns is not just the Lamb, he is the Lion, the Judge, the King, the Ancient of Days wrapped in glory, the angel of the Lord revealed in full majesty. And he will come to do what he promised the patriarchs he would do, what he whispered to prophets, what he declared to his disciples, what he sealed with his own blood. He will restore everything. The broken creation will be healed. The groaning earth will be renewed. The curse will be reversed. The long war will end. The enemy who rebelled before time began will be judged once and for all. And when his feet touch the earth, the mountains will bow. The seas will roar with joy. The trees will clap their hands. The desert will blossom. The graves will open. The faithful will rise. The nations will see the King in his beauty, and he will gather his own, the ones who believed, the ones who endured, the ones who carried his name, the ones who longed for his appearing. He will wipe every tear. He will erase every sorrow. He will break every chain. He will heal every heart. He will make all things new. And in that moment, the earth will finally understand the angel who visited Abraham 3,000 years ago was never just an angel. He was the eternal Word, the visible image of the invisible God, the one who walked between heaven and earth to prepare the world for his final return. He came before in shadows and fire. He came later in flesh and humility. He will come again in glory and power. The story has always been one story, from Abraham to Moses, from Joshua to Gideon, from David to the prophets, from Bethlehem to Golgotha, from the empty tomb to the throne of heaven, from the ancient days to the final day. One story, one mission, one king, one return. The world waits, creation groans, heaven prepares. Prophecy unfolds, time accelerates, the signs multiply, and the same voice that once said, "I will return," now whispers across the earth, "Be ready, for the one who visited 3,000 years ago is already on his way."